might know her by her very popular book, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I read and didn't really love. Also, I just learned that The First Kill, the Netflix show, is based off of a short story that Miss V. Schwab, the insurance broker, wrote. Today, I'm reading the villain's duology made up of Vicious and Vengeful. Viscous was published in 2013. Vengeful was written and published in 2008. There is a possible third book, which is insane. I didn't know much about the series except for a TikToker saying that I think main character's Victor kills people by doing finger guns at some point in this book, which, like, that's all I need to hear, and I'm gonna be it. I want to go into this without really kind of knowing what it is so that I don't have like expectations going into it. So I'm very hopeful that I'm going to like this because she's a good writer and I just hear praise for her constantly and I want to be a part of the club, okay? Because don't get me wrong, all of her books like 3 to 4 stars, none of them have been like blown me away like it has for other people, which is always disappointing. But I've gotten used to it with book talk and booktube recommendations. I'm gonna get to reading these, and I'm going to hopefully enjoy these. Also, if you want me to read, I think it's Fragile Threads of Power is the book that's set in the Darker Shade of Magic world that she just came out with, except all of the books that I have in the Darker Shade of Magic are the old covers, and she like rebranded all of them. Also, all of those books, just for you to know, the Darker Shade of Magic books, they're all on Kindle Unlimited. I didn't know that until after I had read those, like a couple months after I had read those. So go enjoy those on Kindle Unlimited if you have that. I'd be very interested in reading that because I did really love the world that that was in. But anyways, that's a whole separate series from what I'm reading right now. I'm really hoping that I like this series because otherwise gonna be really mad at wasting a week of reading this. I've heard way too many good reviews for this to be a lie that it's bad. So let's get to reading, guys. So we start the book with Victor and Sydney, and it starts with telling us that Victor and Sydney are blonde and that Victor can tell when live people are around, and Sydney apparently has an ability to wake the dead, and she has died in the past. And that Victor just escaped prison like 3 days ago, and he rescued her after she got shot in the arm. In the arm. So this is already wild, and right now, we're in a throwback at Lachlan College, and he's a art student, and he defaced his parents' self-help books, and the art teacher really liked it for some reason, and so we are now following him doing his senior thesis. This is 10 years ago, so it makes me wonder what happened. It also seems like this is set in modern times, so don't know how much I'm gonna love this, but the only thing that's telling me that is the word Sharpie. So, anyways, I have to read more before I make an actual opinion on it. Okay, so we meet Eli, who is Victor Val's roommate, and they are both medical students, I believe, and they're at the top of their class, and they're doing their thesis for their science class, and they are giving the professor like the stuff that they're going to be studying, and Eli says that he's going to be studying EOs, which is extraordinaries, like the psychological, physical, like all of that stuff, and the professor like had denied him doing it before. Is like, okay. And then we cut to the 10 years later where we started this book with Victor and Sydney, and they're digging up that grave, and Victor's thinking about Eli and talking about how he was going to send a message, I think, with the body, and that he was going to make Eli fear and know that Victor is out of jail. So something happened. And I'm very curious as to these extraordinaries. This feels like YA right now. Very quick as of right now, so this man is so jealous of Eli. It is crazy. We learned that Eli was the one who put Victor in jail. We also know that Sydney's older sister, after I think Sydney died in like a lake and came back to life, that her older sister had her boyfriend shoot her and tried to kill her, and that Sydney grew up in a toxic household. So we also meet, or we don't meet them, but we hear about them, Mitchell and Doll, who are also part of their little group. But we know that Mitchell is a was a roommate to Victor in jail, and that he basically listens to Victor and he's smart according to Victor, so we'll have to see. And Victor's abilities are basically stuff about bodies, I think healing and feeling when people are around. Like, I think basically just being able to being attuned to other people is his power. Because right now we keep going between his Sydney's point of view and Victor's point of view while they're digging up this grave. And then we go to Victor 10 years ago discussing with Eli extraordinaries who need to have a near-death experience to be created. And then we went to, like, for a chapter to Victor and Mitchell in jail escaping together for like 2 seconds. And then we see him finding Sydney, being shot and kind of healing her. Or at least I think it was healing. I have no idea. Set in modern times, but people don't know about these extraordinaries. It's only kind of theorized that they exist. And so I don't know why Victor's in jail, but I think that it might have to do something with the fact that he has powers and they were trying to prove that he did to keep him in jail, even though he broke out of jail, so. But, yeah, I like it so far. So, uh, Victor volunteers to go first, for basically dying to test out their theory. He drinks and takes pills and then wakes up in the hospital. And then Eli, after Victor gets out of the hospital, decides to drown himself in an ice cold tub of water. And they're both pre-med, so they're able to, or Victor's able to revive Eli without sending him to the hospital. But now Victor has to go see a psychologist because obviously he overdosed. So, but we do know now that Victor's like has control over pain in people's bodies, and that he has a very big is very jealous of Eli. So, anyways, well, hello. I think where I left off was talking about how Victor was making another attempt on his life to get powers because the first attempt didn't work. What I realized is that you actually have to die for a couple seconds, and then be revived for you to get powers, which is insane. But let me tell you something. I have never read from a person's perspective that has been this crazy. Okay, and we are still in the beginning of the book. We're still explaining his character. We're still getting to know him and understand why he's the way that he is. This man got electrocuted to death by Angie, his friend and Eli's girlfriend, came back and couldn't control his powers, killed Angie by accident, didn't feel remorse for it, got released from his holding cell, went and tried to kill Eli and got shot multiple times. He somehow lives. I haven't gotten to the part about how he lives through that, but the way he was talking about stabbing Eli and how, he doesn't heal until he takes the knife out and how he was using his powers on him. I think his powers are like actually electricity, like in the human body, being able to feel when other people are around and being able to like heal people. I don't know how that part of it works, but he discovered that ability while being in prison. But basically Eli, I guess, was in the building and got called the cops on Victor so that he would get imprisoned, and that's why Victor came back and did it. This man, like the way that he in the story is talking about his anger for Eli after Eli does the right thing in calling the cops on him and then rightfully being terrified of him. Like, also, extraordinaries are only like mythic, like thought of as like a rumor or not real thing because of it is incredibly rare to die and then be revived. It's an incredibly rare thing. Uh, so a lot of people don't believe in it because of how few and little evidence there are of extraordinary people. But the cops have a whole thing for extraordinaries where they cover their face, don't let them see anything, and take them in without reading them their rights. I will say that this does feel, in the year that it was published, it feels very much like something that you would read in 2013. Still good so far. It's definitely a little all over the place with us switching back in between times. Also something that I should mention, her and her sister are like, Sydney got left into a toxic house when her sister left to go to college, and then she came back, and they usually like have picnics on this frozen lake, but it was March, so it wasn't fully frozen like it would have been if it was on New Year's when they normally do it. So they're eating, they fall in, and they both die. They both get resuscitated. Her sister gets the power of persuasion. Basically, she says like, "Hey, I want this thing," and it's given to her. She has to be released from the hospital. They released her from the hospital. And Sydney's powers, I think, are really cool. It makes me incredibly interested if the second book is about her. I still have no idea if it is. Because she's walking around the hospital because her heart and temperature are lower than they're supposed to be. So she's stuck in the hospital. So she's walking around and she goes up a floor and she leans on this gurney and doesn't realize that it's a dead body. This person starts twitching and moving because she touched that person. So she goes down to the morgue of the hospital and tests it. She doesn't talk about what happens in the morgue. She just says that it was that is her power, that she discovered that it was her power in the morgue. The lady who was on the gurney made a miraculous, I can't say that word, recovery after Sydney like leaned over. So I think, I don't know at like what stage they would come back to life and be like zombies, basically, or they would just still be human but missing parts because of the decay. I have no idea. They haven't fully explained that yet. And she's cold and like, you know, basically her vitals are like saying that she shouldn't be alive, but she is. Like, she's should be in a coma from the vitals that she has. I don't know. It's very wild. I'm very interested to see what Victor is wanting to do to Eli. It is incredibly interesting to have a narrator who is as insane as Victor is. I think the only time I've ever read from a narrator who was kind of as insane is Kaz Breaker, and he was every single chapter thinking about Inej. So, it's kind of like Victor thinking about Eli every chapter. There's a little bit of a obsession, which I can understand, but it's also like in the beginning too, that I was like, are they gonna get together? No. I'll see you when I continue reading this. But, anyways, see you later, alligator. Hey! So we find out that Eli is the one who tried to shoot Sydney, and that he convinced Serena of the fact that he's like righteous because his power isn't used to harm other people or can't harm other people, and that when you become extraordinary, you don't actually come back, you're just replaced by something else. He tries to shoot Sydney. Sydney gets away. He tells Serena that he killed her when he didn't. Serena and Victor wants to send a message after learning that Eli is trying to kill extraordinaries, and Mitch finds a list on like the police's system of finding extraordinaries, that they basically have a list for Eli to kill. And Dole, one of the characters, is a dog that Sydney brought back to life. Just warning, there is animal death in this, just to let you know. Very interesting because Eli talks about being this, like, God sent me here to kill people that are wicked, and since I'm an extraordinary, I can only deal with it because he has powers to heal, and that's what makes him so, like. But he convinced Serena, Sydney's sister, and she helps him with this stuff. Not like the actual killing, at least not so far. She did lure Sydney into going there to get killed by him, so I guess she technically did. We now have some of his perspective, which I didn't want. There was a bank robbery, and this dude who Eli had lied to about there being like a superhero program, he went and told him to go like rob this bank, and so he does, and Eli comes in the middle of it and kills him, even though he told the dude to go rob the bank so that Eli can look like a hero. But Sydney and Victor bring him back to life and put a little note on him that shows the 3 bullet marks that Victor has and the 1 bullet mark that Sydney has, and Mitch also. So he knows, and he says, "I made a friend," so that Victor knows who it is. Serena went looking for her sister. This is just crazy, honestly. So, oh, he also killed another extraordinary, and he talks about how he likes killing. So just in case any of us were confused about like the type of person that he is, he talks about how much he likes killing and the relief that he gets from it. So this man, now we've done a reversal of Victor and Eli, what they were like at the beginning of this, and now Eli is the crazy one and Victor's the reasonable one, which if you read the beginning of this, you don't think it's gonna happen, but yay. Hi. So it's a couple days later, and I finally finished Viscous by V.E. Schwab. I gave this book 3 stars. 3.5 stars, actually. It was very close to being 4 stars, but it just, because of like the era that it was written in, it has the kind of style that I don't really love. I literally have forgotten where I was in talking about this. If there's some details missing, sorry. Serena and Eli. Are you having fun? This is my dog. Okay, goodbye. We find out that Serena and Eli meet at a party on campus after Eli stalked to kill her, and Sydney, with her powers persuasion, told him not to kill her. And guess what? Because of those powers, he didn't. She is intrigued by the danger of him and how he's the only person who tries to resist her because of basically getting everything that she wants. She finds him really interesting because he is, not just so willfully going along with everything that she's saying. He's actually trying to fight back from it and not just getting glazed over eyes and giving her everything that she wants. He actually like talks to her like how much he hates her and stuff, and she can't just make that disappear. So she likes having that aspect. And then after like a couple days that they know each other, Eli talks about to Sydney why he's, or not Sydney, Serena, why he wants to kill all of the other extraordinaries, EOs, and she goes to like the cops, these two dudes who lead it, that Eli told her about, and she goes in there and she basically sweet talks them, bring them back to her college like apartment, brings them there, and basically enlists them in giving them their system of finding extraordinary so that Eli can hunt them down and kill them. So, also, so so Eli looks the same age, right? But he's actually like 32, 33 in this. Serena's like actually like 20. So it's a little, the age gap is a little weird. But it's also just not addressed about him having an age gap. So after Serena basically sweet talks the cops and like tricks them, they basically trust Serena more than they do Eli, and they have a system of putting like Eli's name somewhere in the person's description so that it's marked for him to go kill that person. Through this system, we meet three different people that are on that list. Two of them end up getting killed by Eli. And then we have Dominic, who is a injured war vet. He stood too close to a mine explosion and basically broke every bone in his body. He because of that, went into a coma. He wakes up from that, and everything's very bright and painful. And so he seeks to go back to when it was all quiet and he could still hear stuff, but it was like quiet and like everything wasn't so sharp and painful. So he does that and discovers that he has the power of being able to like move within shadows. It's not just like invisibility like the normal way that I thought it was going to be. He moves within the shadows, and it's everything looks black and white. Everything's like slowed, and you can't hear people talking or talk to somebody while you're doing it. We discover basically through an emergency that he can bring multiple people along, like multiple people along with him. Dominic, we meet him after, and we get I'm sorry, excuse you. We get Serena's point of view of how her and Eli met. We get Mitch's point of view of meeting Victor and kind of just his life story in general. And what it was, how he ended up in prison, and how he's this big guy with tattoos and stuff, and he just kind of got the tattoos to fit the part. He's like my favorite character other than Sydney. Sydney and Victor's relationship throughout this is so cute. They only know each other for 3 days, which is so funny to me because the way that she talks about feeling safer with him is so funny. But all of these events that lead up towards the end of the book, where Victor tells over the phone after killing this cop, tells Eli that he'll see him at midnight, and then Mitch is a hacker, so he hacks into their little system that tells them when somebody's an extraordinary, and then he sets up a profile for Victor, and just basically in there is is just midnight and the location. So they go to meet there. Sydney goes there with Doll, her dog. So sorry if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, but she goes there with him because Sydney told her to go somewhere safe or Serena told her to go somewhere safe. I'm so sorry, I keep doing that. After pointing a gun at her, which is crazy, and telling her go somewhere safe, and she feels safe with Victor, which again they've only known each other for like a couple of days, which is really funny. So she goes there. Eli like snatches at her, shoots Dole already died, and like she resurrected him, shoots the dog while he was trying to protect her. So yes, there's so much, weirdly enough there is like two times of animal violence, and I'm just I don't that you're trying to show her powers and stuff, but like we don't need animal violence to show that. And then Dominic and Victor get there, and he takes Sydney out and leaves Victor there. Mitch was waiting for Serena, and he had an unloaded gun. She tells him to point it at his head. He clicks it and it's unloaded so it doesn't fire. And she's shocked at this. And Victor comes out of the shadows and kills her. And then they tells him to burn her body, just so that Sydney can't bring her back in case she's sentimental, which is so sad. And also, at the end of this book, Sydney thinks that it was Eli who killed Serena. I think that's going to be a plot point of, like, it's going to be revealed that Mitch did it, because her and Mitch have, like, the closer relationship out of the three of them, Victor and Mitch and Sydney. But that's when they see the shots happening that are, and they're like, oh, something's up there. And that's when Victor and Dominic go up there and discover Sydney and take her down. Dominic goes back, gets Dole, who was already dead and resurrected and is now dead again. So Sydney has to use, like, more of her power, and it, like, sounds like it took a piece of her to bring him back alive. And Dominic is like, like, what is happening? He's so, like, concerned and terrified. Eli and Victor, they have a whole, like, fight scene that isn't fully detailed. It kind of, because there's a lot happening at once. It's Mitch, Sydney, Dole, and Dominic, and they realize that they need to get out of there because they're surrounded by police. Victor is, like, stabbing and, like, shooting Eli. Eli's healing. They get into altercation, and Eli stabs Victor in the leg and ties him with, like, barbed wire to this chair. And then he plunges a knife into Victor's chest. And after he takes it out and he sees the police coming in, because Serena made them all buddy-buddy with the cops, Eli goes, like, I did it. I'm a hero. Like, I killed Victor. There's no more need to worry about him. And all the cops, because Serena is dead, is now not under his influence or think that he's a hero. They just think that he's a psychopath who just killed this dude. It is now proclaiming that he's a hero. And then Eli tries to say that they got in an altercation. When he heals and has no scratches on him, they're like, no, you tortured this dude, because Eli's blood is everywhere. Which makes it look like he did much more torturing to Victor than he actually did. So that was so nice to read. Just, like, I kind of wish that Serena didn't have to die in it, for her influence to kind of go away. I wish that she went to the other side, because towards the end of the book, she starts realizing that Sydney is actually, like, still there. She is changed, but it's not, there's not a soul in there anymore. And it's so sad, because I feel like she could have changed for the better, but I don't know how the persuasion would have stopped, because Serena spent years with Eli being taught this, and, like, it being hammered into her head because of him going and killing these people, and she had to be okay with it and rationalize it. It's a lot. But Eli is now gonna be in a prison. I slightly spoiled myself on Pinterest. I know that there's a character that Victor and Eli team up together and defeat. That's all I know about Vengeful. I'm very interested to see if Sydney gets, like, older and taller at all, because of her abilities since she's dead. Like, all of her growth and stuff, it happens really slowly. I'm really interested in their relationship. The ending of that book is so cute. But yeah, not 4 stars, sorry, but 3.5. So I'm excited to read Vengeful, because I don't know if there's a time jump. I don't know if Victor is gonna pick up more EOs, or, if I don't know what's gonna happen. I love found family stuff so much, so if it's expanded upon in Vengeful, I will probably be extremely happy. I'm also really excited because of the reverse Uno card that Victor now has on Eli. After, because in the beginning it started with Victor in prison, and him wanting to go after Victor, and now it's gonna be reversed. So that's gonna be really fun. But yeah, now people think that Victor is dead, so I'm guessing he's going to, because he got his revenge on Eli, that he's going to either start gathering up EOs or just like, I don't know. But anyways, um, hello. I read 100 pages, and let me tell you something. It's a much quicker read than Vicious was. I don't have, my brain is completely empty. We meet a new character in the intro of this book, Marcella, and she is getting killed by her husband who cheated on her, and I think is like a mafia, supposed to be like a mafia person. She is in a fire, and this dude comes and rescues her. And then we have it is a time jump from 5 years, but we're going through the time jump of Victor and Mitch Dahl and Sydney. Sydney learns about Serena being killed by Victor and Mitch. We are starting to learn about the extent of Sydney's power, and the main plot point that we have right now is that Victor got brought back to life, but because Sydney can't bring people back without having something go wrong, Victor keeps dying, but he comes back on his own. Like, it'll changes from a couple of minutes. It used to be like days apart. Now it's like a couple hours apart, and it's a humming, and it's basically a recreation of how he originally died. So that's really fun. And then we have a new character, June, who I'm guessing might be Marcella, who's June, who bumps into Victor, sees that he has no memories because extraordinaries, whenever she's touched them, don't. Basically follows them, sees Sydney trying to bring back this like bones from this bird, and then gives her number. They start texting and they're communicating, and Sydney and Victor's relationship is definitely becoming a little bit more scattered. We are seeing Victor searching for somebody to try and fix him and killing all the EOs who aren't able to fix him. And so there's already comparisons of Eli and Sydney having nightmares of Eli, and it's a mess so far. So that's really fun. First off, I want to say Marcella, love her. I'm probably gonna hate her towards the end of this book, but anyways, so Marcella dies in a fire after she catches her husband cheating on her, and he beats her up and lights the house on fire, leaves, and she gets powers to basically turn people to ash, like disintegrate stuff. We also see Sydney, whose body isn't growing, wearing wigs and expressing herself in that way, and then, becoming a teenager that's upset and not being able to go to parties and stuff without being thought of as a kid because she still looks like one even though she's 17. We also just got, Marcel just killed her husband. Iconic. And then we have Eli getting tortured, and he keeps picturing Victor. So Victor really lives rent-free in this man's head. And honestly, I'm so happy for Victor about it. I'm guessing Eli is gonna have a little bit of a redemption arc in this book. I don't want it, but it's probably gonna happen. He's getting tortured, and this doctor is like testing his limits for what he can do, and he pulled Eli's heart out, and Eli's body made a new heart and didn't kill him. So that's just crazy. Anyways, there's a lot happening. Hello. Yes, I know I look rough. Okay, you don't need to tell me. I am at page 200 of Vengeful. The last 50 pages, you remember how I was talking about Eli getting a redemption arc. That's what's happening. His backstory is basically really dark, and religious trauma is basically what his background is. His father was a priest and would whip him, which is why he has scars on his back. His mother didn't fight back and ended up unaliving herself. So be warned that there is discussion of that. And Eli basically didn't have like interaction with normal people outside of his family, so he learns to mimic other people. Oh, I should also mention that this man has always been insane. Okay, this man has not had a single innocent thought in his life. Okay, he and I'm this is the only murder that in my eyes is slightly justified. All murder is wrong, but when you're reading a book and something like that happens, father, like I said, would whip him even though he was like basically the perfect kid, and would do everything and be perfect, but his father saw like the devil in him or in like the glint of his eye, so he would whip him in their little like shed church thing. So his father was going down the stairs and he pushed him down the stairs and waited until he was dead to call the cops. So yeah, I literally have like annotation on the Kindle app of this man has always been crazy, because the way he describes it, giving him peace and how that's how he knows that God is with him, is because of the peace that he had after killing his father, and he didn't feel bad about doing it. And he was just like, God guided my hand, like I don't need to go to church because God's always with me. He's the one who told me to push this man down the stairs. Like, it's now more obvious that it comes from the religious trauma and abuse that he has, that he felt justified in what he did because he knows that it was a horrible thing to do, so he doesn't feel bad about it. And then instead of interpreting that as like a normal person would, where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible person, he's like, God's with me. Like, okay. And then we discover the program EON, which is the extraordinary. I forget what the N is for. Neutralization, actually, I think that's what it is. Which is a terrifying word because that's what Eli used to use. We see Eli getting, like, dissected by this dude, but this doctor is, like, studying him, and they're talking about, like, how they can make people, like, extraordinaries when we know how you do make people extraordinaries. They're not just born with it. And they're like talking about, his regenerative ability, like, oh, if we got that, it would be so good. And the Stell, who is the director of this, comes in, stops it, and all of the people that are paying and supporting this program are extremely mad at him, and they're like, well, if you're not going to experiment on him, at least keep up your other side of the deal that was making it so that other heroes were not causing harm to people, and that you caught them and we could, study them that way. So Eli, after being tortured, he also sees Victor in like his jail cell. He's there and was tormenting him while he was getting tortured really badly. Bad as I do feel for Eli now, I still am so happy that Victor is just living rent-free in this man's head, because Victor deserves it. Even though, yes, Victor is psychotic, he is not as bad as Eli. Although, so Eli gets a computer, starts helping like find EOs, and then they discover the pattern that Victor left behind after killing like a couple EOs in the exact same way. And Eli doesn't know that it's him, or at least I don't think he does, but the way that he talks about it makes me like think that he does. I don't know, but it's basically they're like, oh, it's a copycat. And then they're like, well, he's not going after every single one, so why is this happening? I'm going to be terrified when he learns that because he's going to be laughing like a maniac. But Dominic, our sweet boy Dominic, we got a chapter from his perspective, and it made me so happy because he was talking about getting his life together, how he had hung up his medals, how he had stopped using drugs and drinking, and how he took the job at the EON. And basically, he has powers, but nobody else knows that. And he's telling Victor, like, the people who have regenerative powers to go look for to see if it can help him. And also, just like in case they're going after Victor or Sydney, they are going after Marcella because I don't think, even knows about EON, and she's just torched like a whole group of dudes. So Victor, I will say the comparison, and it's a mix up of whether or not I like this in books, but in this, so far I do like it. Even Sydney challenged Victor on the fact that he was acting like Eli, which the way that Victor, because he wants to have people think that he's still dead, he doesn't want them to report on him if they get captured. He doesn't want to put Sydney or Mitch in danger or Dominic, so he basically kills the people like executional style, and it's just so like reminiscent of Eli the way that he does it. And but he's not going after every single EO, but he's still killing them. So there is kind of a comparison to be made, and it's crazy. Also, Dominic with like because of Victor, like, dying, and basically his whole like power of healing Dominic or taking away his pain goes away for a little bit. I love Dominic so much because he goes, it's just a reminder of the pain and how bad it can be. And I was just like, one thing about V. Schwab, she writes good characters, and that's all that really matters. I'm very interested to see how Marcella comes in contact with Victor, and also why they are coming in contact together, what her whole storyline has to do with both of them, Eli and Victor. It's also kind of terrifying to watch Sydney kind of build up a resentment towards Victor, but also love him so much because, he's like family to her. It's so complex. I really like this book a lot more than the first one, but that's probably because in a lot of sequels we have characters already set up and we're kind of just expanding their relationships, and it's always so nice just to watch that and not have to like learn a new thing about these characters every 5 seconds and compartmentalize that. So I I'm happy with this book so far, but again, I'm only 200 pages in. I'm not even 50% in. I'm only like 40. So give me some more time before I have a solid like rating and whether or not I truly do love this. Anyways, I'm going to get back to reading and probably still going to be looking scuff when you see me reading. So all right. So Dominic, we follow him like 2 years ago getting the job at the EON, and how he was labeled as a extraordinary with the whole system that Eli had before Serena died. So he basically is like, no, I'm not one. And they're like, okay, we're gonna get you to go. We're just gonna hire you because we love it so much. And then we follow Marcel, who gets attacked, and what is her name? Jess. I forget her name, but the shapeshifter, she comes up and helps save Marcella, and they basically have a deal because June, that's her name. June helped save Marcella. She now has to have Marcella help June to go kill basically her like mob boss. And when she gets there, we discover that June isn't just a like copycat mirror. She's a voodoo doll. She can basically like stab herself and she doesn't feel it, but the other person does. Terrifying ability, but absolutely love it. I am so scared. Also, Eli does now, or at least figured out that Victor is alive and is basically trying to get out of his cell to go and like kill Marcel is what he's telling Stell, but he really wants to go and kill Victor. So there's so many things that are gonna go wrong, and I'm already hating it. Uh, Marcella, after already being attacked, they sent a sniper for her, and a dude named Jonathan is like a human shield and protects her. And she goes and kills basically every single mob boss so that she can be the queen of the mob. And it works. It does work. It works incredibly well. And Stell makes a deal with her to find this killer who has been killing EOs and humans, and he finds out it's Victor. Eli has been hiding that from him, so of course that meeting goes really well. But Victor is now, after being hunted by June, she's saw Victor die and come back to life and contemplated killing him and wanting to be Sydney's safe place. So that's kind of terrifying. But Stell makes the deal, tells her to basically stop drawing attention to herself, and she just keeps doing it. They've basically exhausted all of their options except for a new profile that just showed up for on Mitch's program, and Sydney brings it to Victor, and it's a doctor who miraculously has healed like every patient that he's had after an incident. And it's in Merritt, which is where we originally were and where Sydney really wants to be. And so we're going to Merritt now. After June tracked them down all the way to where they were through Sydney. This is I don't know if you can hear that dog howling. So Eli and Stell used Eli's plan to capture Victor. It didn't go to plan because Victor realized what it was, and then, well, the dude who was supposed to heal Victor, who sent them to Merritt, was a part of the trap, and June comes and helps save him and reveals that Sydney has been talking to her and that Sydney has secrets. So that's really fun. And Stell is letting Eli out to try and kill Marcel, who has set up a party of basically like every popular, like well-known person to go to this party, and I'm guessing she's gonna show her powers in some way. And so he's using Eli now to go and kill her, test his regeneration. He also has like this chain thing that goes around him, Eli, so we'll see if that works or not. But Victor and Eli are probably gonna have to work together to kill her. I'm very terrified of what's gonna happen to Sydney because she's friends with June but has so much alliance with Victor, and I'm so scared. I'm filming this on my phone because I don't want to set up my camera. I also have a phone stand now, so I finished Vengeful. I think I read like almost 100 pages since the last time I saw you. This book is 478 pages, so it's like over 100 more than the last one was. In the ending of this, we see Eli and Victor working together to defeat Marcella. Jonathan, who's her bodyguard and who has the power to shield himself and other people, he uses that to try and save himself and Marcella, but Victor uses his powers to make it so that he can't anymore because everybody has a frequency, and so he turns it up, and then Eli gets stuck to a wall while Marcella tries to go and kill Victor because she realizes that he's the one making it so that she doesn't have her little force field anymore. But Eli comes over, and while like basically holding her like this against him, she starts like melting everything, like the floor, his body, but he keeps regenerating, and this statue comes and falls on them and kills Marcella. Eli is alive and runs. I should also mention that so Sydney had run away, and June comes and finds her, takes her to her hotel, drugs her, and puts her in the bathtub, takes her phone away, but Sydney still has a gun. Listen, I know that she is like a 17-year-old, but it still feels so weird to have like describing her as a child, just having a gun, just casually having a gun. But she has her gun. She shoots her way out of the bathroom because there was something leaning against it, so she wasn't strong enough to get out. She gets out, she goes and finds Dole, who was dead after the EON people came and beat up Mitch because they were looking for Sydney and Victor. Dole ends up dead, which why every single both books, why do we need Dole to die? Why do we need that? Why do we need that? Sydney comes back, she finds Dole, and brings him back, thankfully. This poor dog has been brought back to life like 3 times now. Stop doing that. She has this kind of thread to other people that she's healed in her life, and so she has a thread to the people that she's brought back resurrected, so she follows it to try and find Victor. Victor, like I said, was helping Eli after he escapes from, I told this in the totally wrong events, so sorry. After he escapes from Eowyn's like jailing thing because of Dominic came in and helped. Dominic was arrested for snooping around in Stell's office, and we find out that there's a EON that can go through walls that was, I think, working for Marcella. No, I think it was Marcella because Marcella knew about Sydney. We have her who can go through walls and random things. Dominic is stuck. He sees the door open because he can't pass through like closed doors. He sees the door is opening after he got asked a couple questions. He stops time. He picks the locks that he has, and he goes through the door. He comes back in real time, and he enters the code so that everything starts opening up, and Victor gets out and starts running through that. But as he's doing that, everything else is starting to shut down as well, and he already got shot in the side, Victor, and as he's about to get shot in the head, he gets grabbed by Dominic into the shadows, and as they're going, they make it to like close to the front door, and Dominic like slumps over, and Victor realizes that Dominic's entire front of his shirt is not just dark from it being like a dark fabric, but also from blood, and he's been shot multiple times. And so, my sweet boy, the most unnecessary death ever, Dominic dies. You were like way too close to me. We don't get any time at all, and then Mitch comes in, like, crashes into the door. Victor is able to get out, and then they go to that aquarium or whatever it's called and deal with Marcella, like I said. But Eli starts to run. This doctor dude who was experimenting on him, he was the one who like took out Eli's heart and was like, my eyes shape, and it was able to regenerate back in his chest. He's been experimenting on other EOs. So he takes Eli, who passes out from a serum that he made because his stuff is like super dosage. And so it finally works on Eli because like nothing else really does because his body heals too fast for stuff to actually be able to affect him. So he goes with this dude, and as Victor comes out of this like chaos, he asks Mitch to hack the cameras, and that's how he tracks down Eli. And while Eli is on the table, we find out that it's still able to heal, but a lot slower through the gas that is in the air. And as Victor comes in and he's talking to the doctor, Victor realizes that his powers are gone as well. And as he's talking to the doctor, Victor, Eli gets up, stabs the doctor in the throat, and basically kills him. And then Victor and Eli have a fight. Sydney comes and shoots him in the chest, finally killing Eli. Eli is actually dead, unless, I don't know, there could be something where, like, he's not in the gas anymore, so he starts healing and he's actually alive again. Like, stuff like that could happen. I don't know. Victor tells Sydney that he'll meet her at the first place that they met at midnight. He takes the serum, the gas that was making it so his power stopped, because he realizes that basically it stops the whole cycle of him becoming dead. His whole situation of him dying and the feeling of it about to happen takes it away and basically restarts it. So he takes that. He then goes to Stell's apartment. This poor man's shoe got crushed. Like, so much has happened to this poor guy. And he kills Stell and leaves a note that says, "Catch me if you can," and doesn't go meet Mitch and Sydney at midnight. And it makes me so sad because I understand why he did it. He basically took the serum and killed Stell because he wanted to be like the number one target for killing Stell. And that would basically take all the priority on trying to find Sydney away, and it would make it so that she could actually have a livable life. June gets, like, in the prologue of this book, goes in to the EON facility and deletes her file. And I'm guessing she's going to be looking for Sydney, because she doesn't realize that Sydney doesn't want any part of her, because Sydney feels like she got treated like a child, and also because she got drugged. So she doesn't want to be friends with her anymore. But Sydney has Mitch and Dole, and Dominic's dead. Victor is missing, or, on the run with his gas that he has to be able to stop himself from dying multiple times. Marcel is dead. Jonathan's dead. Basically everybody in the mob is dead. So here are some of my thoughts. I feel like Marcella's character, and it's probably because of she wasn't already established and we didn't get as many chapters as we did with everybody else. She's kind of the villain, and so it's wanting to keep her mysterious, but her whole character is just like hot. Don't like men because men screw me over. He has power. That basically is like all that was there, and I was like, can we get more depth to her? Because she's a really cool character with her abilities, but it was literally just like, men don't understand and I hot, so I use that. Like, we could have made her, like, more cunning and more powerful. Like, I understand that it's meant to be like she gets her way easily because of her power, but I don't know. Because it's hard not to kind of root for her character. So also making her a little bit more of, like, a villain, and not, like, you're still rooting for the fact that, she's doing these things because of all these men that have screwed her over, and because, yeah, she wants power, and that's a bad thing, but, like, there was, like, other than threatening Sydney, maybe, like, I don't really know, and her being an extraordinary, I don't really know what else would have been, like, that really threatening about her, honestly. I just wish that this book was longer and that we had more time with her, and I hate the fact that we leave Victor and Sydney's whole kind of thing unresolved. I do really, really like, as much as I do hate it, so much of Victor being on the run to give Sydney a life. That's something that I absolutely love. I don't feel like Dom's death was necessary. I don't feel like you should have killed Doll again. I get he might have been being aggressive, but, like, just lock him behind a door. You don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. I gave Vengeful by V. Schwab 3 stars. But if you like dark, like, superpowers with morally gray characters, this is probably, like, the perfect duology for you. Anyways, thank you for watching. tell me what you thought of this book series, if you read it or not. I would hope so, because I spoiled so much of this. Anyways, like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Hopefully it's not like 4 or 5 weeks like this was.